Hi, welcome back to Movie Review Mom. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me while we talk about movies. I know I always say that I'm the one doing all of the talking, but you know what I mean. Be sure and subscribe, comment below, and ring that little bell, and that'll notify you every time I upload new movie reviews. Okay, so today the movie I'm reviewing is The New Mutants. This movie is rated PG-13. It's an hour and 34 minutes, which is actually the shortest movie in the entire X-Men franchise. And yes, this is related to the X-Men, just in case you didn't know. The movie review mom grade I'm giving it is a C minus, and I feel really terrible saying that, but I'll tell you why I gave it the grade that I did. First, in a nutshell, Marvel really wavers on this one despite bringing us incredible movies in recent years. This particular movie is kind of a mixture of a coming of age superheroes with horror. It's directed and written by Josh Boone, and it's kind of a sci-fi thriller that features young stars Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones. If you loved her in that, you'll enjoy her in this. Anya Taylor-Joy, who has been fantastic. I'll talk about her in just a few more minutes. And Charlie Heaton. Now, Josh Boone, the director, is a huge fan of X-Men, and he owns a lot of their comics. And so you can feel his passion for the franchise in the movie. Now, this movie was going to be released way back in 2018, but due to reshoots, corporate shuffling, and the pandemic, it finally hit streaming and some theaters in September. Inspired by the successes of recent horror films like It, the very first one in 2017, and Get Out, also in 2017, the studio reworked this movie to make it scarier. The intention is that it would be the first in a horror trilogy. Now, some audience are saying, pick superhero or horror, don't mix them. It didn't work. I've read a lot of really critical reviews. People hated the movie. And yet I didn't mind it having a little toe dipping into the horror genre so much. If you like horror, I could see what the director was trying to do there. Let me give you some tips for parents, and then I'll point out some things I liked and didn't like. First of all, some lesbians kiss several times in the movie, and then some other teens kiss. In profanity, there's one F-bomb, six scatological terms having to do with, bodily humor kinds of stuff, one anatomical term, 8 mild obscenities, some name calling, and 2 religious exclamations, in case you wanted the breakdown on all of the profanity there. There are some scary moments and creepy creatures that could frighten very young children, although older teens probably won't think it's scary enough, especially if it's going to be categorized in the horror genre. And it's not like this horror slasher blood and all of that kind of a horror movie like Saw or some of those truly horror movies. This is sort of like a gateway horror movie, I think. Anyway, there is a lot of violence. It's a superhero movie of sorts. There's some explosions, destruction of property, some bullying. You see a naked teenager from the front, but his private parts are actually covered by a plank of wood. It's supposed to be a humorous moment. And one teen is talking to another teen about how he hopes this one other teenage girl is a nympho. So that's inappropriate. And then you see 2 girls in showers several times in the movie, but you don't really see anything from the waist down. It's just, bare shoulders and the water's falling on them and that kind of thing. But, they are in the showers. Now, some themes that were positive, worth sharing messages and lessons about are, first of all, confronting your personal fears and being brave and, courage isn't courage unless you're afraid. And this movie really illustrates that point, that if you're able to still be afraid and be brave, that's courage. Teamwork, finding your inner strength, friendship, controlling your powers, in this case, superpowers, but even us normal folk have to control our certain things, right? And there's this story in the movie about good and evil, and it's illustrated with a bear. Now, we've heard the story even in other movies before about it being a wolf, but in this movie, it's a bear. And so this girl is told when she was very young that inside her there's this bear, and it's both good and evil. And the lesson, I won't give you the end of the story because you'll see that in the movie. It's a very good story with a powerful message. And I would say, oh, it's overused because we've seen this in other movies, but in this movie, it's actually really appropriate. Now, some things that I really liked about the movie, or I mentioned before, I really like Anya Taylor-Joy. I think she's a really versatile actress. The most recent movie I saw her do was Emma. And so if you haven't seen that movie, actually, I'll play that one right after this movie so you can watch my movie review and see if you're into that. Now, these two are very different movies. You know, that's kind of like Regency romance, you know, and whereas this is superhero X-Men type of stuff. But if you like her as an actress, I think that she was really great in that movie. Now, because the movie is such a slow burn, you get to know the characters fairly well. However, I'll talk about the same point on the things that I didn't like about the movie in just a minute. Now, this movie definitely feels different than any other superhero movie, partially because of the horror element. But audiences aren't really sure if they like that or don't like it. The fact that it doesn't feel like it fits with the X-Men franchise. Some of the CGI is pretty good, although some of it is noticeably bad at times. Now, a couple of lines actually made me laugh out loud, and they were meant to be funny. But this is definitely not a lighthearted Marvel superhero movie like Thor Ragnarok or Guardians of the Galaxy. It really is more of a serious drama. Now, things that I didn't like about the movie are, first of all, the first scene starts with a bang, but it happens at night and it's so dark on the screen that it's going to be really difficult to see what's happening when you're watching it on streaming on a small device. And so try to watch it on the largest screen that you can because there are additional dark scenes, nighttime scenes, and you're going to want to know what's going on. Some of the actors' accents faded in and out, and that's always super distracting where you're reminded that you're watching a movie, that you're watching actors act. And I like to be able to really disappear into the characters and believe that they're real and I get invested in them. And so that's one of the things that I didn't like about the characters. You do spend some time getting to know them. You definitely know what their fears are and their powers are. But the problem is they're very cliched characters and you don't really like them that much. They definitely have flaws, so they're more annoying than endearing. There's lots of brooding teenage angst, and some people will just sort of be annoyed by that. The movie itself is very slow moving, and some would call that boring. I'm just trying to call it a slow burn. That sounds better, right? The very big battle of the movie doesn't even take place until the very end of the movie. So there's not a whole lot of action. There are some jumps and scares, but it's not like big action superhero movie like you would expect in an X-Men movie. Now there's this one character, a little dragon, and it's awesome. And as soon as it appeared on the screen, I was like, oh, I want to know more about this little creature. But sadly, you don't really get to see that much of him. And it's only in the last 10 minutes of the movie. And I felt like if they had introduced that character earlier on, I would have been, I don't know, maybe more engaged or interested to see, well, are there going to be other fun little creatures or what's going on here with this little dragon? And it's sort of a missed opportunity, in my opinion. Now, another thing about the actors that took me out of being engaged in the movie is the screaming. You know, there's lots of screaming because there are jumps and scares. And then in the final battle scene, there's lots of stuff going on. But when the certain actors scream, it sounds and feels like actors screaming, ah, instead of a real person really being frightened. And I don't know, they're young actors, so maybe, they're still learning how to really sound authentic with it when they're screaming and that kind of thing. Anyway, the movie overall is pretty predictable. If you're paying attention to some details at the very beginning, you pretty much know how it's going to wrap up. All right, now there are some movie recommendations I have for you. Of course, X-Men, if you like that franchise, you can go back and watch some of the previous ones. If you've never seen any of the X-Men movies and you like this movie, then maybe go back and watch some of those. And some of them show the character development. Some of them just dive straight into the action. There are a bunch of them. Another movie that, or really TV show that people are comparing this movie to is Stranger Things. So check that out if you haven't discovered that. And until I see you next time, be safe, healthy, and kind out there. And I'll catch you in the next movie review. Bye for now.